You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, have another amazing show lined up for y'all. We have a special guest. His name is Kenneth Webb. He is a man who has lived several lifetimes in one. He has served 33 years in the U.S. Army, rising to the rank of lieutenant colonel with multiple combat deployments. He is someone that I hope you appreciate, not just his story, but what he brings to the table. He knows what it means to make life or death decisions under fire and to carry the unseen weight of command. I can't wait to jump into his story because he also has some writings that you can check out in his books, but we're going to really get into the story. So first and foremost, I want to say to you, Kenneth, thank you for being on the show today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be on the show.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate your service after you retired, both from the military and American Airlines. You made a bold move. You walked away from the safe path and you decided to finally live instead of just exist. You are in Peru and you're living an amazing life. You have a novel that you're working on, Trapped in Deception, and I can't wait to hear all about the beginnings of what sparked that. And so first and foremost, kind of give us a little bit of your military background.
My military background, okay. Well, I mean, I always knew I wanted to be in the military. It wasn't defined very well as far as I wasn't sure what I wanted to do exactly in the military. I was at a junior college, saw a colleague from high school in the locker room of the gym in a military uniform. I said, hey, what's going on? And, he got me interested in the ROTC program. I went to basic training, did a little bit of enlisted time, was involved with the tanks in armor. And then when I graduated, I was commissioned as a military police officer. And I did a total of 33 years. It was all in the Army Reserves, but as a reservist, you have the opportunity to go on active duty deployments. So with those 33 years, I have just about, I'm like 2 weeks less than 18 years active duty. And because I was a reservist, I was able to do some civilian, things as well. And I worked as a teacher. I wasn't certified, but worked as a teacher for a year in high school teaching English. I worked in business with a friend. And I eventually, what drew me to American Airlines was the flight benefits. And I got with American Airlines. Didn't do anything like really exciting with them, but excellent flight benefits, just did reservations, also worked in operations. And I mean, the background was I got a degree in English. I didn't play the game very well. I was loving to learn, but my grades weren't what they should have been. It wasn't because I didn't study. It's because I would love to just read. And I was so involved in the ROTC program that, I had an embarrassing GPA. So I tried to go get a master's degree right after my bachelor's. That didn't work out. I wound up going back for my master's degree in December of 2012 is when I started it. Did it online. It took me about 3.5 years because I was active duty with the military on mobilizations. I was down in Fort Hood. I went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, did my master's thesis there in Guantanamo Bay while working full time. And now I want to go back and get my doctorate. But, after the Army, I actually retired from American Airlines before I retired from the Army because I was a reservist. I had an opportunity for an early out. But after the Army, I did about 7 months of contracting in the Middle East on an intelligence contract. I didn't like it. I missed the camaraderie of the military. Despite that, I was looking for another contract because when you're used to just working, then you don't really know anything else. I was like, well, while I'm waiting on this contract that I knew was going to take months, I'm going to do something productive. I had a friend dying of cancer here in Peru, so I came down here to see her, did some back and forth stuff back to the States for the contracting job. The one I was looking for actually fell through, so came back to study Spanish and was down here 3 months. They finally were going to get with me for the contract. I said, you know what, you guys didn't keep in touch with me. You didn't give me any updates. I've been down here for 3 months. I like what I'm doing. I have my Army pension. And so I'm going to pass on this. I'm going to pursue my goals. And the other thing was, people, not very much older than me, I knew from the military were, there were people who were dying, cancer. One guy had a heart attack. So I'm like, you don't know, tomorrow isn't promised. So I'm going to do what I want to do. I don't have any kids. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do what I want to do. Wasn't married and still not married. And, I want to get a doctorate. I want to get fluent in Spanish, and I want to write a novel. My priorities switched a little bit. The fluency in Spanish was actually first, and then it was going to be the doctorate and then writing a book. But while I was here studying Spanish, one of the professors convinced me, why don't you just start writing it now? And it was a smart move. Things, stress. While I was down here, my mother did get sick, and I had to go back to the United States. She did die within 2 weeks of my returning, so I had to take care of her estate. And then her brother, my uncle, died 2 months later. And then my stepfather, and that was in July, and then in end of July, and then in October, my uncle died, and then that was 2024. And then my stepfather died. I guess it's been about 2 months now. And then his son died. So, there've been a lot of deaths. So I'm like, it's actually made me more determined than ever to get my goals done. My book is currently with the editor, and this is the first novel I've ever written. The longest thing I'd written before that was my master's thesis, and that was fact. That wasn't fiction. In my novel, every character in the novel who has a speaking part is based on somebody I personally know. And I've trimmed the novel down. Some people are telling me it's not long enough. It started out being 73,000 words, roughly. Now it's under 43,000. And that is because I just cut out all the fat. I wanted people to just read this, make it a page turner. I'm going to self-publish. I never did this for profit. I think people who are writing for profit are writing for the wrong reason. We have to eat, but you should, it's the love, it's the art, and I think that's what makes it great is we do want to love it. And to show you what I'm talking about, I've spent a lot of money on beta readers, and I'm going to be doing on the editor. I don't think I'm going to recover that money. I'm going to give all my Spanish instructors down here at the school I go to a free copy of the novel. The only caveat I ask from people is that they give me an honest review of the book. I'm going to do a raffle at my church's Christmas fair. They're going to have a raffle, and I'm going to give the book as one of the things they can win. And I'm going to sell the novel at the Christmas fair. And then, of course, you have family and friends who say, well, I'll buy it online from, Amazon. It's going to be cheaper for me just to print it down here in person in Peru than to go through the cost of shipping, because there's no such thing as Amazon Peru. They have to ship from the U.S., so you have to pay taxes for coming down through here. And that's really it. The thing is, some of the things in the novel, one thing that I'm proud of in the novel, some people were saying like, oh, Ken, nobody would ever speak that way, or the text would never be that way. Well, they're all taken from real texts. I just changed people's names and changed dates and locations, but the texts and the emails, those are real things. They were real conversations. They said the bad guy in there starts out looking sophisticated. He gets down to Peru, and he's like the Big Lebowski. And that's based on somebody if you don't know the Big Lebowski, he's just a guy that was just kind of, could be very silly. And the novel is a crime psychological thriller, and it's a drama, and it starts out with someone who works in a bank in Dallas, Texas, a made-up bank, and he does a white-collar crime, steals the money, not with a gun, but by stealing it, faking his own death. That's a common theme. And apparently he has reinvented himself more than once. And he escapes down to Huancayo, Peru. You've probably never heard of Huancayo, Peru. And that's because you go there are no gringos like me. You go there, you will not see white people. You will not see Anglos there. And not only that, but nobody there spoke English. You had to go to the tourism people. When you want to go on a trip, they can speak English. They can speak some French. But it's just a great place to hide. He's going down there under the guise of being some type of a missionary, and he's planning his next heist when he goes down there. I won't say where it is. I don't want to give that away, but it's also in Peru. And he had said, oh, this is the big heist I'm doing in Dallas. This is everything. I'll never have to work again. But, just like those people that can never get enough, alcoholic, drug addict, and it's based on somebody I personally know. And this person didn't understand boundaries. And to me, this was catharsis writing this book, because the good guy in the book is loosely, and I need to emphasize loosely, based on me. The good guy in the book is a computer genius, which I am not. And the bad guy in the book is a lot worse than the person that I based him on, who used to be my friend. He's no longer my friend. But he's a very manipulative person. And he was a school teacher at one time. Now he does real estate, good at that, just a natural salesman of himself, just able to manipulate. And you see the good guy in the book growing in the book, and he's experienced the catharsis. He's coming to the realization that he doesn't need to get even with the guy. And the reason that he's even involved with the guy at all is because the guy, one of the things he stole was the cryptocurrency key. And he can't unlock the key. They've done some nifty computer stuff to keep it to where he can't unlock the key. And so he calls up his former friend, who he really mistreated, and wants him to go down there. And his friend initially says, no, I'm not going to do that. No, find somebody else. But the bank that he stole this money from, this is where it gets a little more complicated. They were illegally gambling with their clients' money. And the money that was stolen is like the money that they've been gambling with, and they've come up with debt. And same way with the cryptocurrency key, they want to keep it from the authorities. So they're going like off the books through a contracting agency. A lot of these military contracting agencies have become popular since we've been involved in the Middle East so much in the past 2 decades. And these people have connections, and the good guy in the book had been in Afghanistan, and he has a friend, and, they just find out that he is somehow able to help in the recovery of it. So they kind of hire him because he doesn't like his job. And he works for the airlines, but he doesn't like his job. And it involves the catharsis he goes through when he goes down there to get him. And of course, he's not an operator. He's an intel, just like I was intelligence. He's an intel guy. I wound up in the end, the last 16 years, I was intelligence. And so he's not going to be a person who knows how to fight well. I'm not trying to stereotype, saying none of them do, but, kind of awkward, socially awkward, and reflects me in a lot of ways. So they send him to like a training course where they're teaching him, not because they expect him to do anything outstanding and physically, but he may be in a situation he needs to. And sure enough, just like, in the movies, the guy that's, they're going to have a guy who's not, maybe qualified or expected to do something, but he's going to be thrown into the middle of a situation that he is not maybe the best person for, the person they expected to be involved in that. And I feel that the novel is the right length because I told my story. I told the story that needed to be told, and I put hints in there so that I can write 2 more books in the future if I want to, maybe 4 more. But I'm just loving it. I'm loving the process. I'm loving being on the Podmatch community, going to interviews, doing all this. I have a web page, and I'm just excited about it.
appreciate you giving us that teaser, because it sounds like a true thriller. And you mentioned the page turning and just everything you said. I'm gonna have to get this. Is it out yet? And if it's not, when is it projected? If it's not already, how can they get it?
It's not out already. It's going to be on Amazon, which if you're in the U.S., that's probably the easiest way. I'm going to buy my own ISBN. And maybe a lot of people listening don't know what that is, but it's what you get when you create a novel. I see you do. But what I didn't know is that you can get a free one through Amazon, but if you do that, you have to sell on Amazon. Yeah. And so I can sell on Amazon if I buy my own ISBN, and I can sell other places. So I'm going to put it out to as many places as I can.
And let's kind of talk about that, being able to position yourself to do self-publishing. What was the learning curve so far? Have you gained?
Oh, it'd be a big learning curve, and that's just because nobody knows who I am. So, and I'm not a public figure. So, I've been told, I met a publisher down here. He has a girlfriend down here in Peru, and he comes down periodically. He told me not to waste my time. I'm writing a fiction. A novel is a fiction, and if I was like someone involved, like when they captured Saddam Hussein or something like that, that's a story a lot of people would want to hear, and that's fact. So, if I was writing that, or if I had a ghostwriter, that's something I get a publisher to get behind. But for an unknown person, it's pretty hard to do these days. And so the learning curve, I got on Fiverr. I learned the story, it's a lesson we learn many times. Just because you pay for something doesn't mean you're getting something better. I'm probably going to go with the AI that was generated that was free, because most people are liking that. Now, I'm not down on Fiverr. I like Fiverr. I use Fiverr for paid beta readers. I had some free beta readers, one in particular, Lila Kirkendall, and she did for free. I get on these these pages on Facebook for authors, and you can get some free beta readers that will get on there and do a good job. The problem is, some of them, if they don't like your genre or they don't like your book, they won't continue. But if you get a paid beta reader, then they're obligated to finish and hopefully do a good job. And I didn't pick the cheapest. I picked the ones with the best reviews. So I paid good money, and my editor I didn't get on Fiverr. I got her from a fellow author I found on one of these web pages, and she's certainly not the least expensive. Christine Driver with Clever Editors, but she's doing an excellent job. And I said, Christine, don't worry about the money. This is my first novel. I want this done right. I'm going to pay somebody to do all the margins and the stuff like that. They have there's software that'll do that, but I've been told sometimes that software makes mistakes. I want somebody. I don't care if they use software, but I want someone experienced in this to do it. I just don't want to wing it. And I said, do you feel that I need a proofreading? And she said, well, Ken, if you're not that worried about the money, which we're always worried about money, but she said it's always good to have a proofreading to catch anything that wasn't caught. Because right now she's doing the line-by-line editing. She did developmental editing for me a while ago. When my mother got very sick, it interrupted the writing process for about 7 months. And in total, this novel is going to will have taken me 2 years to write. I'm told that it's going to be, people say how many pages, but it's really the word count. I already said just under 43,000 on this, but I don't know how the margins will be set. I'm told that somewhere between 170 to 190 words. And being kind of the anal OCD person I am, I want a list of acronyms. I put footnotes, believe it, in this novel, which a lot of people say you don't put footnotes in a novel, but I don't think it takes away from it. And I'm putting in a list of characters, explaining what the characters are. I'm open to putting them at the end instead of the beginning. And, a table of contents, acknowledgments, everything about the author in there. So what I learned the process. of what all needs to be in a novel. And it's, for people who haven't done it, I'd say it's well worth it, but it's not as easy as people think. You know that. It's not something where like you're just going to knock it out. People think, oh, how hard is it? You just write it. Well, no, it's not like that at all. And it's really a lot. I don't want to. I've already invested a lot of money, and so I don't want to pay a lot of people for publicity or advertising. I do pay for my own webpage. It's Ken Webb with 2 B's 69.com, and to maintain that page runs me about $70 a year. But initially, I had to pay to build it, and I think it's fun, but it's not something that I think I'm going to make a lot of money from, or I don't think I'll even recover what I spent. So I guess what you're going to learn about the self-publishing is, I'm going to say again what I said before: don't do it for the money, because if you're not doing it for the money, and you manage to make some money or at least recover what you spent, then that's a bonus. If you're doing it for, I look at it like, when you go to university, it's an investment. Most people, unless you're going to someplace like West Point where you get paid to go, it's an investment in your future. You're not like, well, how much did they pay me for going there? That's not the idea. And really, statistically, I've had people show me if you're just about money, most people would be better off just going to like a 6-month, technical type school to learn a trade and working for those years they were in university. And I mean, we could talk more about that. I think we need more of those people, actually. Some people feel like the thing to do is to university. It's not always the case. So what did I learn about publishing? I learned you're not doing it for the money. I learned it's a hard process. Actually 2 years is not, with me having a 7-month break, that's not a long time to be writing the book. But keep in mind, I didn't have a job. I was studying Spanish full time. And, of course, being retired and being in Peru, I wanted to see things, try to have a life, try to date some people. And now I want to do an audiobook. But doing an audiobook of a novel of fiction is different than doing one. I listened to a general that I worked for at the United States Embassy in Baghdad. You can see that from my shirt. And his code sign is Dragon, and John Tyker. And he retired as a 1-star general in the Air Force. He made 2 stars, my understanding, but turned it down so he could retire and as a civilian was working for the Undersecretary of the Air Force and was a political candidate at some point, but he dropped out, but he's pursuing other things. And he wrote a book called Boom, B-O-O-M, and it's about all his experience. He was at Edwards. He was head of the Air Wing. But when you're writing a novel and you have to imitate people talking, well, I'm going to have to imitate females in there too, because I plan on doing my own audiobook. So I'm sure that'll be a challenge. I don't think it's as challenging as writing the novel, but I may have to adjust some of the script. I'll have to talk to some people about that. But I think it's fun.
That's a great insight for those who have ever been interested in self-publishing. Well, I want to get in before we get close to closing this. I want to touch on the fact that when you think about veterans and how the process is to transition from one space to another in the public eye, leaving the military, what has been your experience like, and what advice will you have, generic advice will you have for someone who's thinking about making that transition from military to civilian?
Okay, well, in my case, let me first of all say I retired twice, and in both cases it was mandatory because you reach a mandatory retirement date, and that is based on the number of, it's based on age, but in my case it wasn't. It was based on number of years in the military. I was a lieutenant colonel. I didn't make full colonel, and the first time I retired, it was during COVID in 2020, and it was in June, and because it was COVID, things were behind schedule. 3 days later, I got an email, and it said, so much of your retirement, you are extended for 2 years. And it was supposed to be so I could make colonel. Now, the catch to that was, I was like, okay, now I'm going to look for a battalion command. I hadn't done that before. But I'm like, I'm going to look for one. But then every place I looked for a battalion command, so you're in charge of so many soldiers as a battalion commander, company commander, platoon leader, company commander, the next one, battalion commander in traditional Army. And so they're like, well, you need to have a minimum of 2 years in remaining. I said, well, I have 2 years. Oh, no, you were extended, but it was backdated. It was already like 3 days into it, 5 days into it, and I couldn't do it. So I got to remain a lieutenant colonel for another 2 years, and that's actually the time I went to the embassy. But I went through a severe depression in 2020. In 2022, not so much. But it was still like, I don't feel like I'm part of the team, and that's why I did the contracting role. But then I was like, I really don't like contracting. There are different types of contracting, and I could have come in a management position. I didn't, because I wanted to learn the ropes. But when you do that, what happens is it's like chutes and ladders, as a lieutenant colonel, then shoot. And I came in, I went from having my own office, having people working for me, to just being like, hey, we need some help over here. And, the money's good for that. So I would suggest anyone, when you're getting out, make sure you take care of all your medical stuff, any disability, things like that. Make sure your pension is squared away. And don't be afraid to make the move if it's really what you want to do, because I had a lot of anxiety. But then I realized when I got out how much stress, I said stressor, pressure. I guess that's like a combination of new words, stress and pressure, stressor. But how much stress I had been in while I was in the military. Because, like some people are able to just separate work and well, I'm not. I took it home with me. I was stressed out. I let things people say get to me. And for those that have been in the military, they have way more power and say over your life when you're on active duty than in a normal civilian job. Even with the police, it's different than being police. You can call somebody back in if they're a police officer to work, but they don't get involved to the extent the military does, where, okay, you're going on vacation. Where are you going? You have to tell them. And, oh, no, you can't go over there. You need to check in for this, And so I would advise people to embrace the change and then to chase their goals. And as I said, tomorrow is not guaranteed. So I want that doctorate. That's a lifelong goal. If you check out statistics, and I'm going to tell people, check out statistics, getting a doctorate, I'm 56, at my age, is not worth it financially. It's not worth it if you're in your 20s. People do it because they want to teach, but going down that route of teaching, that's not where the money's at. So if you're getting a doctorate, it has to be for some other reason. And I'm going to do it online. And that's because I have so many problems with attention, and I don't want to be looking for a parking space. I don't want to be told I'm too old to be getting a doctorate. I don't want to be in a class with people in their 20s or maybe early 30s who have different priorities than me. And I don't want all the distractions. I'm going to do it down here. I want getting fluent in Spanish. That's just a goal long-term over the whole thing. And, I can be writing my novel while I'm doing it, especially if I plan on self-publishing the whole time I think I will. So I'm embracing the change. I'm enjoying it. Paying attention, as we get older, the times that we work out, as you get older, the time you exercise is supposed to be later in the day. So you don't get up and have a heart attack. That's statistic stuff. So now I do it in the afternoon. If I'm going to do it in the morning, it's a light workout. Or if I'm going to do it in the morning, I get up really early in the morning. So I've already been awake for like 3-4 hours. And so I would encourage people to embrace the change. If they still want to be part of the military or attached, they won't be part of the military. If they still want to be part of the team, contracting is a great way to go. GS is closer to military. Government service is closer than military is. And, especially if they have some disability rating, they're a shoo-in for getting that. And I may go back in the workforce after I get my PhD or my doctorate, because not all doctorates are PhDs. But I'm also thinking I may just open a business. My priority is actually more low stress and doing what I like. If I can work from home, have like an Airbnb or something, I think that's great.
Well, once again, listen to Refocus Radio, watching us online, talking to our guest today, Kenneth Webb. Make sure you get his books. Make sure you check out everything he's doing real quick. Tell them where they can find you on the website.
Okay, my website is Ken, K-E-N, Webb, W-E-B-B, 69.com. And that 69, I've heard a lot of comments about that. That's the year I was born. I was born in February 1969. That's why that 69 is there. It's not something vulgar or anything like that. KenWebb69.com. And the book will be out on Amazon. I plan on putting it on other forums, but Amazon is the most popular. If you're down here in Peru, you can buy it from me personally and save, because I won't have to give Amazon or any bookstore their cut, and I'll autograph it. But I don't know how many people watching are down in Peru or like, yeah, I think I'll go down there and get that. I'm not counting on too many doing that. But it's trapped in deception, and it's about, a relationship I had with a friend and how he was just able to just manipulate and twist things, still manipulative. And so I had to break off all contact with him. He's just too good at manipulating.
Like always, I want to say to you, appreciate you being on the show today. And like always, thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks for having me.